Awesome. Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandeep. Just making sure everything is all good here. Um, awesome. So I know this is one of the first sessions after the lunch, so I'll keep it less technical, more of a storytelling. And yeah, hopefully you guys like the presentation. So, so today I'm going to talk about how Apple approached the digital transformation of its retail stores. And before the concepts of around smart retail and IoTs and sensors and things like that, how Apple was approaching um, basically digital transformation of its retail stores and its channel stores to bring about making sure that the pricing, making sure that some of the concepts around self-checkout, online order pickup and things like that, how did they achieve, how did they achieve and how did they implement those in these Apple retail stores? So the agenda today is going to be this, brief intro, the history of how Apple actually implemented smart sign in its stores, the concept around electronic shelf labels, how did Apple approach the price distribution in its stores, and then finally we'll also talk about the concept around decentralized pricing that it actually implemented in its stores. So a quick intro, I'm Sandeep, I'm Director of Engineering at Walmart Global Tech. I do not work at Apple anymore. I used to be working at Apple, but this presentation is mainly about the sort of the journey that Apple went through when it is digitally transforming its stores. Currently at Walmart Global Tech, I run the Associate Productivity Engineering team, which is a mouthful for basically a bunch of stuff that we deploy in Walmart stores at a scale of close to 5,000 plus stores around US and internationals. Before this, I was with Meta, specifically working on their business payments engineering team. Again, kind of making sure that the online e-commerce stores and how do we enable them by bringing them online through WhatsApp. And then at Apple, I was basically working on the retail and channel stores engineering. So all the technology that was going into these Apple's retail stores or Apple's channel stores worldwide were some of those things that we were working on. So we have seen these nice, beautiful Apple stores all around the world. It's more about the brand building for Apple than anything else. I think with every single retail stores that they've opened, they've only gone bigger and better, and they've done actually, their stores have only become much larger in terms of the square feet and much larger in terms of the revenue that each of these stores are bringing in, right? So Apple uses these retail stores as a way to kind of build its brand. Slowly, some of this Apple's phone selling has also gone online, but the retail stores are still the bread and butter in terms of building Apple's brand. So Apple still continues to invest a lot of energy and time and money in making sure that these stores are kept up to date, and they are like the best in class in terms of the retail stores. This is one of the images from the Palo Alto Apple store when it was revamped a few years ago. And this is another picture which is, I think from the Fifth Avenue Apple's flagship store, where you see those iconic, the glass staircase. But then what I would like to bring your attention to is, all the people who are kind of wearing these blue T-shirts, Apple's retail store employees. They are basically, their job and their main job is to basically come and interact with the customers and not do kind of the setting up of the table, figuring out what's the pricing on the stores or what's the pricing on a particular device, is that correct or not. Their main goal is to go have interactions with the customer, make sure that they understand what are the needs of the customer and accordingly pitch a particular product to the customer rather than spending time setting up the store, spending time printing some paper pricing labels and putting them on those devices. So you would see them just running around the stores, doing a bunch of things, except for setting up these devices. That's their main goal, of have those customer engagement and customer interactions in these stores. And we also seen these devices on the store. They are nicely laid out through a particular planogram that is pushed to these stores a night earlier, and through these planograms, also some of the digital pricing apps that I'm going to talk about, these stores are automatically set up, and the amount of time that these Apple retail store employees have to spend in setting up these stores is very minimal. Right? So Apple's journey in moving away from paper-based pricing into a digital-based pricing is started off with this smart sign. This device that you actually see is one of the first devices that Apple started to put out back in 2010, which was one of the electronic displays for a combined iPad with an iPhone or any other device, which would actually show you all the content, which will show you all the features of a particular product that it is selling, but it will also, in addition to that, it will also show you the pricing of the product itself. So this was one of the first ones that was put out in 2010. During the launch of Watch, this was another smart sign that was put out, which was more about, not about the pricing, but helping our customers who are walking into the stores to help them understand how some of the features of the watch work, and not having to kind of, because there was almost a flurry of people walking into the stores, Apple had to kind of kludge this device in a couple months to make sure that they are able to scale to the number of number of customers walking into the store and inquiring about these watches. So this is like the timeline of Apple's journey into smart sign. In 2001, Apple launched their first retail store. In 2011, the first version of the smart sign was launched. In 2015, Apple also launched on those smart signs a talk to specialist feature, which was more about, instead of you kind of waiting for a person to come and walk and talk to you, right? I mean, you could basically just call a particular specialist to the desk where you are actually standing, although that was discontinued because of lack of adoption. 2016, Apple launched a demo loop on these devices. So all the demo devices that you see on these tables, they have a version of demo loop running, which they call it like an attract loop. So the loop basically has a bunch of features combined into it and almost kind of attracts you to come and play with those devices. In 2017, Apple launched its first pricing app. And this pricing app was mainly for customers to not only learn about the product, but also learn about the pricing of these products. Because right around that 2016-2017 timeframe, Apple's SKUs within the store started to just go out of control. They started to have iPhone 6s, 5s, 4s, XS, and a bunch of other things, and they started to go out of control. So Apple had to launch a pricing app because printing a paper label and putting it on the table every single night, or with every launch, was becoming tedious for the Apple retail store employees. So we launched an Apple pricing app, which was much more sort of headquarter-driven content being sent over to these devices overnight, so that it's by the time you come in the morning or as an employee, all your stuff is already set up for you. Around 2017 and 18, Apple started to expand. Apart from its own retail stores, it started to expand into channel stores. It's third-party retail stores like Best Buys and AT&Ts of the world. And there are small mom-and-pop shops which around the world which are actually selling Apple's products. And with this expansion, Apple started to sell its products in a much more sort of organized way in close to 1 million stores around the world. So we had around 800,000 to 1 million stores, small mom-and-pop shop stores and whatnot, which were selling Apple's devices around the world. And because of onboarding these third-party resellers on our portal, there was a need for our smart pricing app to also scale to the needs of the partners, because Apple was no longer controlling the prices of these devices. These device prices, which were sold in these partner stores, were controlled by the partners themselves. So we had to come up with a way where we could take the existing solution that we had in a very reliable way, collect the pricing from our partners, and then distribute it down to these 10 to 100 million devices, which could be a Mac, iPod, Apple iPhone, and whatnot, with all the updated pricing overnight. And around 2019, we launched our the 2.0 version of the pricing app. This is how the pricing app looks today. If you walk into a Apple retail store or one of the channel partner stores, this is how the pricing app looks like. Again, the focus on these devices is more about the features and the capabilities of the device, And as you scroll and explore, you can compare a bunch of things, but then also you can learn about the pricing of these devices. So the reason why Apple started to go into this is, if you look around the market or the industry, right? I mean, everyone started to adopt the electronic shelf labels to start showing digital pricing and move away from paper pricing, right? There is inherent value in actually using electronic shelf labels. What is that value? These are, obviously low cost. These help in reducing the pricing errors. If you incorrectly print a pricing, or if a partner wants to, reduce the price of a particular product, they have to then go and, recorrect their whole store. And instead of doing that, you could actually control it from central, location or your central servers or your portal, and then just push that updated pricing to all your devices. This also supports dynamic pricing, right? So if you see that your competition is actually, selling your product at a lower price, you could then push a much more sort of attractive or a competitive price online real time and get it updated right next to the product. It also drives customer engagement, because some of these devices, especially the one on the right, you actually see a lot more content. So, depending on how you build your content, you could also drive a lot more customer engagement and understand what are some of the features that the customers are really interested in exploring, and potentially focus on those features as you iterate through your product. In some of your larger stores, it also actually helps you with in-store navigation. There are certain sensors. As you see, there is a green dot on the top of one of the shelves. These green dots can actually help you navigate as you're approaching a particular, be it an Apple employee or be it any retail store employee. If you want to navigate to a particular product in your app, you can actually get directions specifically. And as you approach that product can start blinking lights, so that you really understand exactly where you need to be when you're searching for a product. So this was the general concept that Apple started to look at, replicating on its own Apple devices within its store. And that's how the Smart Sign was born. Smart Sign was nothing but basically a combination of a couple of things, right? It was a combination of the content that Apple would create for you, because Apple is supposed to be creating the best content for its own products. So it would create a bunch of content, marketing content for your product. In addition to that, it would also add the pricing that it would have, the pricing which would be something which Apple is pushing to these devices, or our third-party reseller partners are pushing to these devices. What this ended up doing is that it let our customers do feature exploration through this pricing app. It let them compare a bunch of different models. It also let you compare whether you're interested in purchasing the most current model, compare it to the N-1, N-2, and different previous versions. It also had concept for the pricing, so you could push the pricing. And then in general, one of the best things that it actually drove is we started to understand what are the features that our customers are really looking for in these devices, and started to either highlight them more or start to have our Apple retail store employees initiate their conversations through those features. So once the Apple retail stores were taken care of and we started to roll out our Smart Sign application, one of the other challenge we had was in our channel reseller stores or channel partner stores, which were close to 800,000 stores around the world, right? We had to come up with a much more scalable solution. And our partners requested us to guarantee delivery of the pricing. So if the partner wants a particular price to be shown on a device, right, all of that data, the marketing content, and the pricing is all coming through Apple servers into those devices. So the partner started to ask Apple to guarantee that if I change a price from $599 to $499, can you guarantee that that price would actually show up on the device within less than a minute or less than 30 seconds. So that opened up a bunch of other options, or a bunch of explorations for the engineering teams to go and explore what options do we have to go back and guarantee that level of SLA for any price updates that can then be pushed to these devices. So that's when we started to think about this whole device ecosystem that we had within our Apple stores and our channel stores as an IoT solution, and started to figure out what are some of the fallback options to make sure that we are showing consistent pricing for all our products in the stores and around the world. So the other story around the channel stores is that the the smart signs accelerated the expansion of Apple into the channel stores. Through the pricing app, we were able to reduce the pricing errors by close to 27%. We were able to increase the customer engagement in these channel stores by 16%. And the real reason is that in these channel stores, these are very small 500 square feet or 100 square feet stores somewhere in a corner of a city, and you do not have that level of bandwidth that an Apple retail store would have to engage with customers. But once you don't have people in the stores to be able to attend to your customers, by having a very engaging app and an engaging content app in the store, you could then have your customers come interact with those devices and learn about the product that they've walked into the store to purchase. And this is how the stores look like today. So anytime a new product is launched, we still have a huge line of people queuing up to kind of buy the product. Through this smart signs that were deployed in these retail stores, we were able to take off some of the load and able to handle some of the incoming traffic that was coming into our Apple channel retail stores. So what is this whole, how did we actually end up doing the whole price and content distribution? This slide basically just talks about a high-level architecture of how we ended up doing that. So we had a marketing content team, which is within Apple, generates a bunch of nice-looking content. We also had assortments. So Apple knew which channel store is distributing or selling which particular Apple devices. So that information was with us. And then finally, we had our partners or channel stores. So it could be a mom and pop shop store, or it could be a big distributor, which is setting the pricing. So we actually came up with a portal, and this is all the data that was consolidated through different areas. Combine that, send it through some kind of a message bus, and then we had some content distribution model and a module which had a bunch of logic inside it. And we also have a pricing distribution model. And what we ended up doing is the content, which was a couple of GBs of content, we started to distribute that content overnight to all the devices, be it Mac or your iPods or iPhones. But for pricing, where our partners wanted a much more real-time price updates and price changing guarantees on those devices, we had to basically do a couple of things, right? Obviously, we went with our regular route of APIs, so our devices would ping our servers every few seconds and get and check for any updates on the pricing side. We also started to leverage MQTT as a protocol. So if in case, because we started to look at these devices as IoT devices, MQTT is one of the protocols that is heavily relied upon, within the IoT world. We started to look at leveraging MQTT as a protocol to do fan out for any price updates for all our devices. And then finally, obviously, we also have the push notifications. So we also relied on push notifications, right? So we had three-pronged approach to make sure that the pricing updates land on these devices within a given SLA, and we were able to guarantee that 99% of your price updates would land on your devices within less than a minute of something being updated on the partner side and showing up on a particular device. And overall, I think it was the implementation was that sophisticated that you could target a particular product by that I only want to update an iPhone with this particular price, and the effective date of this change would actually be maybe in future 2 days from now or 3 days from now. Or you could also say, I want this pricing to be updated right now, and it should actually go ahead and sit on those devices and it should get reflected. So we were able to guarantee those levels of SLAs through this. And finally, obviously, overnight, we also get the telemetry and real-time telemetry from these devices back into our dashboards. So the whole concepts around digital twins that the previous panel was talking about, I think the way I look at digital twins is it's a glorified, data analytics in a way, like, especially for smart retail, where you can collect a lot of data real time and take some, run it through some bunch of AI models or machine learning models and figure out where some of the potential, roadblocks are or potential gotchas are on our devices, and accordingly send signals back into those devices to correct themselves, right? So I think we started to do that. We started to collect real-time telemetry from it, and we were able to analyze that, okay, these are the devices which are potentially about to go corrupt or potentially going to show you incorrect pricing, and accordingly take action based off of that. And then finally, the whole decentralized pricing concept, right? So Apple wanted to show you, there's a couple of things that can happen in the store, right? You could have a bad Wi-Fi in a store, which is somewhere in a corner of the city, right? And that can lead to incorrect pricing, because if you have 3 devices in the store showing the iPhone pricing, one of the devices is unable to connect to the access point, and that will start to show an outdated pricing versus the other 2 devices are showing you the updated pricing. So we started to run into those type of issues, right? Your MQTTs, APIs, and push notifications can also fail, right? Any of your the potential, and if your Wi-Fi is bad, none of these would work anyways, right? So we had to come back with a 4th fallback option in case something of this goes down and the devices are not able to connect back to the servers. The one option that we found was that instead of giving more focus to the updated pricing, we can give more focus to consistent pricing. So one of the key hallmarks again at Apple was make sure that a customer is not seeing an incorrect pricing for the same product in 3 different devices. I'm more than happy to show an older price or a stale price rather than show 3 different prices on 3 different devices. So what we ended up doing was we started to use these iPhones as, iPhones are iBeacon transmitter as receiver. So we started to use these devices as a way to sort of communicate between themselves and build an ad hoc network between themselves, where they would then understand that, okay, which is the version of the pricing each of these other devices is running in the store. So if I have 3 iPhones, each of them are able to kind of send the version of their pricing to the other devices, and each of those devices know that, okay, I'm on version 1 of the pricing, but this other device is on version 2 of the pricing. So they can automatically sense that, okay, that some of the devices in the store are actually showing incorrect pricing. And then once you have that ad hoc network created, you can kind of use some kind of a consensus algorithm, Paxes or a bunch of other things, and come back with the lowest common denominator in terms of the version of the pricing that each of these devices have, and then fall back to that. So again, this was like very rarely we saw these devices fall back into this, but there were cases where we had bad Wi-Fi in the store, or the access points were completely down, and some of the devices had the version of the most updated price, and some of the devices did not have the updated version. And in that case, we started to build this ad hoc network and make sure that all the devices fall back to a version of pricing which is more consistent. Even though it may not be the most latest, but it is most consistent within the store. So yeah, that's the concept of decentralized pricing. So I think that's the last slide. Yeah, we can open it up for Q&A. To summarize, I think Apple's journey, just the presentation today talked about a bunch of things. A few things were talking about how Apple sort of started its journey around retail stores digital transformation. How did it actually pivot into making sure that it was able to scale its operations for its channel stores, and once the time came to make sure that the pricing is delivered to these channel stores devices in a real-time manner, we had to come up with a few sophisticated solution to make that happen. So, yep, we have about 4-ish minutes or so for any Q&A. Any questions? Yes. Yep.
What about stores that have a lot of products?
Yep.
And that would be really costly to make digital pricing for each of them. What is actually huge, let's say?
Yeah.
Thank you. So my question was, what about products that have a lot of shops that have a lot of products? Because Apple has, let's say, not much items in the store,
Yep.
and that's kind of easy to do. But what about shops that have huge amount of products? How to deal with such pricing?
Yep.
How to deal with that? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I guess that's why they hired me at Walmart to kind of solve this. But yes, one of the slides that I was showing you. The electronic shelf displays that we had, it might take some time. Wow. Whoops. Yeah. So Walmart is starting to explore this, right? as you correctly pointed out, Apple doesn't have those many SKUs, but a store like Walmart or some of the other big retail giants have millions of SKUs at any given point in their stores, and updating the pricing for each of those products is a nightmare, right? And at any given, like if you take a year of retail, retail stores lose billions of dollars because of incorrect pricing. And that is happening today. Someone is supposed to update a pricing for print something in the back room and bring it up and put it up. It just doesn't happen in a very reliable way. So Walmart is actually moving to these type of electronic shelf displays as we speak, and they're exploring a bunch of options. But again, in a much more smarter way, by not only just putting a bunch of displays in there, but at the same time making sure that we treat these devices as IoT devices. So we are not just taking these shelf displays as the dumb shelf displays, but we are also talking about displays where we can actually put in a bit more tech, which can actually talk to each other, and then kind of build a consensus around which particular pricing should I be actually showing on that particular device. So we are looking at implementing this. You rightly pointed out, with Apple, it was much less number of SKUs, so it's much easier. But with Walmart, we are kind of exploring this right now, working with a bunch of third-party partners who develop some of these electronic shelf labels, but customized to Walmart's needs to be able to kind of have an ad hoc network of collected pricing. So in case our Wi-Fi's go down in the store, which normally happens all the time, we are still able to show more reliable pricing and a consistent pricing within the stores. Any other question? Yep. I think we're done. I think, yeah, thank you, everyone.